Good morning, all. I'm Heather Herring, the Education Manager at the Northeast Resource Recovery Association. I want to warmly welcome you to our summer webinar series. Today, we will discuss tricks of the trade. Do you need professional credits? You can receive 1 hour professional development credit by participating in this live webinar and completing the short survey at the end. Our webinars are being recorded and will be made for those who registered. Continue your learning with these webinars all summer long. Please visit our new website at nrrarecycles.org for additional information. Here's some information on our webinars. For recycling facility operators, we have our operator track webinars from which to choose from. We are nearing the end of our webinar series, and our recorded webinars are available on our website's Summer Webinar Series page. For our educators, administrators, and community members, we have our community track webinars. We've separated our webinars according to probable interest groups, but all NRRA members and not yet members are welcome to participate in any and all of our webinar offerings. I'd like to set the table for this GoToWebinar. Webinar participants will not be able to be heard by the presenters or other participants during this presentation. If you cannot hear the presenters' voices, please click the audio arrow in your control panel and choose computer audio. If that does not work, select the phone call option and follow the directions. We hope that you will ask questions and our presenters will do their best to answer them as time allows. Click on the questions block in the control panel and type in your questions. Please keep questions short and to the point. Here's a bit about the Northeast Resource Recovery Association. We are a recycling nonprofit. We have 400 members, primarily municipalities, and were founded nearly 40 years ago. So, what do? We do cooperative marketing and purchasing. We enable communities to manage their own recycling programs and offer over 40 programs, including single stream and municipal solid waste. We connect sellers of recyclables to purchasers. We also provide education and technical assistance through workshops, facility tours, an annual conference, and summer webinars like these, technical assistance, and a school club and virtual school workshops. And now, I would like to introduce our panel for today. Joanie Cudworth, Director of Public Works in Hollis, New Hampshire. Ed Walsh, Transfer Station Manager in Rollinsford, New Hampshire. And Brian Patnoe, Recycling Manager at Littleton, New Hampshire. On behalf of the NRRA, I'd like to welcome you to the summer webinar series and turn this presentation over to you. Welcome, Joanie, Ed, and Brian, and I believe Joanie will speak first.
Thank you very much. As you all know, my name is Joanie Cudworth. Before being the Director of Public Works, I have worked in the solid waste field for the last 18 years. That gives you a little background before I became a Public Works Director. Slide 1, please. So slide 1 is we had to start thinking outside the box when COVID-19 came, and we were very concerned. Everything came to a screeching halt, like I think it did in most towns. So we decided we would have a soft opening. And so what we did here, the picture that you see, is on our door. And because we didn't want people coming into our office, we had to think of a way that we could create a safe zone for our staff, but also be able to receive revenue for our payable items. So what we did was we put everything on this front door and we opened our office window so that the residents would come to the window and pay for their items and get their receipt at that time. This worked really well for us, and we're going to continue this, not letting anybody into our office. And so that's what you see right here in this slide. Next slide. So with this whole new adventure, I call it, with the staff, and when the recycling came to a screeching halt, before we brought it back, we decided that we needed to do something different. We needed to change how we were presenting recycling so that we could get people to come back to it, but do it in a way to explain it better. So there was less sorting, there was less handling for the staff. So what we did was we decided, and I had seen this in other towns, and other towns do it. We put a board up, as you can see, and we put a display, and we got some new signs made. So this is the aluminum can display, and it works really well. So people see that, especially people that don't frequent the transfer station as much as others. And so when they see that, they tend to realize what goes where. So it's a lot less sorting for the staff. So that's what we did with the cans. Next slide, please. So this one is very interesting. So as we all know, plastic was we were taking mixed plastic in our case, and we don't bale. We compact our material. So we had I would say fortune, if you would want to call it that, of changing the way we collected our plastic. So after we had when we closed everything down and started our soft opening, we decided that we were going to just compact clear bottles, clear plastic bottles. So with doing that, we've had a lot of hurdles. We had to have an employee stand by the recycling bin for the last month and a half, explaining why we were doing this. Mixed plastic was going to the incinerator. And so what we decided was this was the opportunity to change the way we were thinking and try to start educating people about what truly is recyclable and what truly is not. It's been a hurdle, but people are finally catching on, and our first load of clear plastic went out. But like I said, there's been a lot of challenges with it. But again, it's a lot less sorting and handling of what I call the junk plastic that has the clip art on it that really is trash. So that's what we did with our plastic, and it was a good opportunity for us to change course and try this. And so I think we've been successful now that it's September 2nd. Next slide, please. So with all our education in Hollis, we find that we really do need to think outside the box. So when we had to clean up our glass and do better, we made this sign and we put it out by the glass recycling area, make people understand why the glass needed to be cleaned and where the glass went and how it all worked. So this is a picture that we put out there of how the glass is recycled, where it starts, it goes to Keene and then off to Canada. And it's been very receptive, and people now understand why they need to keep their glass clean. And once you explain it to them, they get it and they want to do it. And we've been very successful with our glass. It has been clean. And I think a lot of it has to do with this poster that we made. Next slide, please. So in Hollis, we also have started a composting program, and we just take food scraps, no meat, no dairy. We started this about a year ago. This has been very, very successful for us. So the residents, they bring their food scraps to the transfer station, and then we transport them down to what we call our stump dump. And we have an area where we recycle our vegetable scraps. I would say when we started this, it was a pilot program. There was maybe 20 or 30 residents doing it. We have well over 100 residents doing it now. It's a small percentage of what we're keeping out of the trash, but in the big picture, we're slowly educating people about, if you take your food scraps out, you really don't have much trash left. So with doing this, we have 2 employees that went to the main composting school, which I think is very key if you want to do the composting of food scraps. We learned an awful lot. We were able to bring it back and educate our residents. And so this is what you see. It's kind of just, we don't put the food scraps in the composter. It's just there for a display. So you see the trash cans there, that's where the compost goes. Next slide, please. So this is Pacolina, and Pacolina is something that I created, and you can't see it in the slide, but she has food scrap pictures hanging off of the cart. And what I do with this is I take this cart with Pacolina and I roll it around the transfer station in different areas. And what I find is that people start asking, hey, what's this all about? And so we start the conversation that way. A lot of kids will ask their parents, well, what is that? What is that? And so it gives me an opportunity, or the staff, to take a moment and tell somebody about the compost program that we have in Hollis. It has been very effective, and it continues. We continue to move her around, and you know, we'll change her up. For winter, she'll have a winter hat on and so forth. But it is a good way of advertising, and it does work, and it's fun in the process too. Next slide. So another thing that we tried in Hollis was we noticed that a lot of people were throwing the scrap metal in the trash. And I trying to come up with a way to make residents stop doing that for a number of reasons. And so what we came up with was this, we made this cage right by the exit gate, and we put how much revenue we made in 2018 out on a sign, and we had this cage. And what was interesting that I found were people started to take notice. And the reason I know that is because the metal didn't go to the metal pile, but people started leaving it next to this cage here. The next thing you knew, we had vacuum cleaners and tire rims and pots and pans on the ground next to the cage. So I knew it was effective. And what I learned from that is, again, if you can show them something, and putting the number out there, $22,507.96, was really an eye-opening experience for them as well. They didn't realize that that pot or pan that they truly thought was trash actually generated revenue. So this has been very successful for the town of Hollis as well. Next slide.
Oh, thank you, Joanie. That's what I have. Yep. But do you have any other comments about Hollis? I'm sure we'll have some questions at the end. But any other pieces you wanted to cover?
I would just share with everybody that this has been a very interesting time for all of us, and I think we all have had to think outside the box. I mean, in Hollis now, we're looking at what happened with the newspaper industry. There's really no newspapers. So is this an opportunity for us to switch gears and start doing white office paper instead? So that, you know, with this pandemic, there has been a lot of interesting turns in the recycling markets, if you will. And I think it's also given us opportunity to reflect on where we can make changes, make good changes, and move forward towards the next decade. So in Hollis, we're embracing the changes. We're trying to think outside the box. And I tell you, it's been challenging, but we're succeeding. So it's all good.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Joanie. And we'll talk more at the end. But right now, I'd like to introduce Ed Walsh, from the transfer station manager in Rollinsford.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the seminar. That's probably not the best picture of me, but it was one that was on file at NRRA. So yes, I'm Ed Walsh. I am the manager of the transfer station. I come to this industry from a totally different industry, a totally different background, trucking background and small engine repair. Two different things I've done in my life. So coming into this, I joined up with the town of Rollinsford in 2017 at the highway department, and I worked between the highway and then I managed the transfer station as well. We have 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee at the transfer station. Very dedicated folks that have been in this a lot longer than I have, but well, one of them has. And you know, they embrace everything that we've done here. We did some changing back in 2018. We were a single stream recycler. So everything came in, everything went into one big 30-yard or two big 30-yard roll-offs, and off it went. When things started to go south with China, we got looking and thought, we might want to be doing something different here. And we were looking at the numbers that we did, that we were paying, you know, to dispose of our waste and whatnot. The first thing we looked at was glass. Through NRRA, which the town I don't think did a lot with prior. They had the glass program. So we started in mid-June of 2018 with our glass. Put that into one particular container, 30-yard roll-off, and that took many, many tons of glass out of our disposal stream. And it didn't give us any revenue, but it cut the number practically in half as to what we were paying to dispose of it. So that was a big plus. From there, we looked at the rest of the recycling that we were doing. The paper was able to be pulled out, and we do a mixed paper Gaylord. With that, then we thought, well, plastics, aluminum, tin. So the tin now, we've always recycled steel. We've always had an area for steel recycling or light iron recycling. That we use a very local company. They're only 3 miles from us to take care of that. So our tin cans go into a hopper that we have, and we take that. Once we have an empty container from the recycler, we put the tin cans in there. The aluminum cans, we thought, well, let's put those in a separate area. And we did that. And same with the plastic. And we don't have a lot of room here. And we only have about 2,500 people in town. So we don't generate a tremendous amount. So the plastic was one of the things that we looked at and went, boy, this is, you know, how are we going to handle this? Well, we started taking that. We made big bins, which there's a picture here coming up of. And we did the 1 through 7. That's a picture of the front gate. Sorry about that. Shows kind of what we look like, similar to what we look like today. So we started with we took the plastic, we did 1 through 7. We know we're not going to get the most revenue from it, if any. That's a picture of the horizontal baler that we purchased. We purchased a used baler. We've got about $22,000 roughly in the baler, between the concrete pad, the baler, and the electrical. Highway here, we were able to do the pad, and then Atlantic Recycling, which is only 2 doors down from us, is where we got the baler from. We had it wired in. So about December of 2018, we started using the baler. Efficiently in January, we're officially online with it, of 2019. So we do 1 through 7 on the plastic. I'd love to break that down, but one, we don't generate enough, and 2, we don't have the storage space. Last week, I shipped out 44 bales of plastic, and that represented about 9 to 10 months worth. So as you see, it takes us, you know, quite a bit of time to come up with enough plastic to get rid of. And the first time we shipped plastic out, we were at about 2 cents profit on. This time we were at a negative ½ cent. But once again, that's things that did not end up in the regular MSW stream. So, I mean, the buzzword is cost avoidance. You don't get any better than that right there. So that seemed to work really well. And that's one of our employees. That's Paul. It's pretty easy here. We have 2 people named Paul, the 2 full-time guys. So it's hard to go wrong. I'll give a chuckle. That's part of the recycling bins that we're building. Highway's building them, and there's only 2 of us full-time at Highway. So we bounce between everything. So it's taking us more time than we want, but it's working out really well. We've got roofs over our recycling now, where initially we didn't, and that caused a little bit of an issue, but we've worked through it. So with the whole covert thing, of course, you see Paul, he's got his mask on. You can go to the next slide, please. This is one of our residents. He said he didn't have an issue if I wanted to take his picture. That was just taken the other day. He came in, probably, I gotta say, probably 80% of the people that come in have masks on. We do encourage it. I'm not gonna stop someone if they go to get out of their car. We just back up. We do the 6-foot rule at least. And so it's one of our residents is throwing something away in one of our balers. We have two compactors. We have 2 compactors, so we alternate between the 2. Next slide. This is the other Paul. Cardboard we've been doing for years. That's something that was done long since before I came here. And it's a pretty good income stream through the cardboard. Once again, storing it. We have a Quonset hut building that we store this in. We share it between the cardboard and the plastic. And the aluminum we don't keep on hand. I get three bales and I can take it over to where I need to take it. The aluminum is, I call it my little gold mine, because unbeknownst to us, as we started this, the aluminum seems to pay the most. I can take 3 bales of aluminum, or about 3,900 pounds of aluminum over, and get about $600 for that. So it helps offset the budget quite a bit. That's, it's quite helpful. The light iron, that doesn't pay an awful lot, as you know, but once again, it keeps it out of the mainstream. Something we did with the whole covert change, we decided, well, let's move things along a little quicker. I don't necessarily like the first sentence there, no socializing, because that's a big part of your transfer station. Know your people, know who's coming in. There is always a time to chat while they're here. But we kind of took this from the stop, drop, and roll program the fire service uses. And I guess that's what happens when your highway department is 99% firefighters. So, no socializing, stop, drop off your trash, roll out the gate, kind of put a little fun twist to it. And it works for the most part. You don't want to stop people from talking. You want to keep it light. You want to keep them engaged. That way they know what changes you're doing. We've had some interesting times with with changing over from the single stream to the full site, first on-site separation. It's worked out well. It's worked out good for the town. The other hat that I wear outside of here is as a selectman for the town I live in, which is Acton, Maine. I've been a selectman now for 9 years. So I know both sides of the fence. What you come in as a department head and you tell them what you need for a budget. And I know from the other side what a town can afford for a budget. Sometimes it's not all that much fun playing those 2 games, but it's the way it is. So the key to it, from my side being the manager of the transfer station, is looking at the budget and looking at what you can get for return. So on your recycling, that's the only place you can, I won't say make money, because you're not going to balance your budget, but it certainly makes it a lot easier when you go to your selectman and you say, well, I need, for instance, us, $20,000 for a used baler, because we'd like to try this program. So they said, well, what can we save? Well, we're not sure. We don't have an exact number because we've never tried it. But I can tell you right off, Mr. Selectman, or Mrs. Selectman, that the first place we can save some money is trucking. We were hauling our 30 yard was being hauled once a week on the single stream to the tune of $225 a week. So initially, there's 52 hauls. That's not going to happen. That's over $11,000. So in less than 2 years, we can pay for that baler. And we've been the 2 years. And as far as I'm concerned, the baler's paid for. Also due to the fact that the aluminum that goes through it gets baled. So we bale aluminum and we bale plastic through the big horizontal baler. And we've now paid for that baler in 2 years. And we're starting to, you know, if you were a business, you'd be showing a little profit on that piece of equipment now. So that's worked out really well. The other thing, with NRRA's help, and I never knew this was even possible, is you have a company come in and pump out the Freon out of your appliances. And we charge customers or residents to drop off an appliance. We then collect up a number of them. We did just about a month ago, we did, I think, just over 100. It was $9 per unit to have the Freon pumped out. So you're paying $900 or so to turn those into just scrap metal, basically. And my recycler will take those as scrap metal. And you're not going to get a lot of money back, but once again, you're going to offset that $900 by maybe a third. So that's, you know, another place that you talk to your selectmen and you tell them these are things you can do, and it works out pretty well.
Ed, I appreciate your examples of what you've been able to do in Rollinsford. It sounds like there's been lots of changes and for the good.
There has been a huge number of changes, and over really a relatively short period of time. It's been
Excellent.
just a couple of years. So I don't know, is there another slide there or is that the last one?
That's the last slide. And we're going to turn it over to Brian now, and I'm sure we'll have some questions at the end, but thank you so much, Ed. I appreciate it. And next up, we have Brian Patnoe from Littleton, the solid waste manager. Welcome, Brian.
Good morning. I'm Brian Patnoe. I am the Littleton solid waste manager. I've been the manager for, I don't know, the past 7 years. Next slide. I've been the manager since 2013. I'm currently the chairman of the Penny Baker Solid Waste District, which is 19 towns. They deal mostly with the MSW contract, the hazardous waste days, fluorescent bulb pickups. Overall, I have over 20 years experience. I actually started as what was supposed to be a 2-week temporary job at my freshman year in high school, which turned into a summer job, which turned into a lifelong obsession. I'm also the co-owner of RPC Stables in Lancaster. Next slide. Transfer station, a little bit about the transfer station. It's one of the top recycling centers in New Hampshire. We constantly divert over 50% from the landfill. It's usually a lot more than that. All depends what we consider diverted. That's a little different than a recycling rate. For an example, you know, we give away a lot of wooden pallets. You can't really add that to a recycling rate, but it's still diverting it from the landfill. Currently, we accept recycling from residents from over 15 towns. Some people drive over an hour to come to our facility. We're also a host site for the NRRA's PGA program. Next slide. So tricks of the trade. Just some of the things I want to quickly go over. Public relations is definitely key at our facility. Where my biggest thing I love is the data, the stats, and other geekiness. Things we have do. We help out a lot of businesses and COVID changes. Next slide. So public relations, I've always thought of this as the key to our success. Next. What we do, we help people with the trash bags. To me, that is the most important job when we are out front. We help out a lot with recycling. We help unload metal, brush, demolition debris, all that. When we have time, we make sure we visit with the people. That gives us a chance to ask people their thoughts on any changes. The other big things is make sure we joke around with the public a lot. And my favorite is we make sure we feed all the dogs. Okay. Helping them, it's one of her biggest compliments, and I'm proud to say that. I have a great crew. It makes people feel like they're getting a lot for their money. They appreciate it. It's a good excuse to say hi and just talk to the people. But there's another reason, as we help people, we kind of see what they have in their vehicle and make sure it's placed in the right spot if there's a charge, say for electronics or something like that. And, or even if there's something that we constantly see that's not recyclable, we get to talk to them about it, explain why it's not recyclable or anything like that. Okay. So we get to know people when we talk to them. We can ask their opinions, their thoughts. The customers, what I have found, especially in the past couple of years, is the customers have their favorite person. I have one guy that works on cars part-time, so they always talk to him about cars. I myself is the animal person, so they always bring their dogs to me or show pictures of any new animals and pets they get. We have a military guy, which he's also born and raised in Littleton, so he knows everybody. So it's nice to see, and I make sure that the other employees know that it's okay if they ask for somebody else. It's not they don't like you. It's they just have that favorite person. Once you get to know them, their customers are more likely to ask questions, and that's a key. You also get to learn the complaints in town, and one of my biggest jobs, every time I see the town manager, he asks, what are people talking about? What are their complaints? So then the town can look into it. And joking, it just adds so much more enjoyment not so fun job or task, not for only the employees, but for the customers. That's one of my dogs. As I said, I love feeding the dogs. Okay. So why is public relations such a big deal here? You know, we have never had anything voted down come budget time. Usually it's one of the highest percentage yes items town sees. You know, a lot of places, transfer stations are low man on the totem pole when it comes to the town employees, you know. And what I've seen, you know, people have respect you more, you know, once they get to know you. You know, it's amazing how many people all of a sudden just come up to you when you have a day off, and if they see you in the store and, you know, say hi and want to visit, which is great. One of the funny things I heard from multiple people is they enjoy going there. They want to show off the facility. You know, we get a lot of people that when relatives come up and visit, they bring them to our facility just to show it off, which I think is very unique in our industry. Okay. The next part I wanted to talk about is data and stats. It's very boring for a lot of people. I love it. You know, the more you know, the easier it is at budget time. When you get asked to do a report, it's very quick to do most reports. You find some pretty interesting wow factors. You know, you can also figure out what the biggest money hogs are in your budget. Once you get the numbers, you know, you can find the trends. You can see if you are DES compliant. You know, you can respond quickly to the abnormalities. You know, and you know when to change pricing if you do charge for stuff. Once you start seeing it get into the red for a while, then you know, okay, we have to look at it. So like this is, I love Excel. Spreadsheets are the best for stats. This is just kind of, I know it's a little small. This is one setup I have just for like the MSW and bulky and demolition debris. You know, I just calculate, you know, when I get a bill, I put in the information, it calculates it all for me. I can tell, you know, total tonnage, tipping, transportation costs. I can, right there, it shows the totals, the average trip, what I do the average day based on 7 days a week. Most importantly, it's what I'm on pace for. So that kind of tells me how to prepare for my budget for next year. And usually my budget, because of how I have everything all laid out, is when I prepare my budget, it takes about 10 minutes to do. And it's also more accurate than what it has been in the past. Okay. I do cost avoidance a lot. It's a big key, I think, nowadays, which is for the people that don't know how to calculate it. It's, and I'll give you some examples later, is you take the revenue, if there is any, and you added the avoided cost. And this is important because what customers, taxpayers, select board, need to understand is it's a lot more than just the revenue you bring in, which you have to look at, okay? So for cardboard, for an example, say you're getting a revenue of $50 a ton. Landfill with transportation is about $100 a ton. So you say you ship out 20 tons of cardboard. You take the revenue, which is 20 times the 50, that's 1,000. The avoided cost of if you just threw it away, which you take the 20 tons times $100, which is 2,000. So the cost avoidance is actually $3,000, which is, like, with this calculation, this pricing is $150 per ton, not the $50 per ton. And that is very important. And I cannot say that enough about that. And I really hammer it into the select board's heads when I see them. Okay. So things we have made or done to make work easier. Okay. So, like, this is a bulb box. So we are very busy at our facility. And one of the issues we saw was we never had time to put the fluorescent bulbs away properly. So they were kind of leaning up against here, set down there, just kind of all over the place. So we made this plywood box. It's on wheels. It's all labeled with a date and everything like that. The word fluorescent is spelled wrong, but we can use it so we can just flip it open, throw them in, or set them in. Close it up, and it's all in DES compliance. And then when we have time, we can take care of it. So all of a sudden we went from something that we were never compliant on to now we're constantly compliant on. It also makes it so we don't have to deal with bulbs every single day. We can just do them as we have time. Okay. We have self-dumping bins located throughout the facility for scrap metal. This one is located behind the demolition pre-crusher. So then as a contractor comes in, and if they have some metal mixed in with their demolition debris, we can easily separate it. We got these a couple years ago. We are looking to actually buy more this fall, and we're going to have them different colors. So red, for an example, will be for scrap metal. We may have, say, blue for brush, or green for brush, and a couple different colors, so we can just go, hey, go to the red bin and dump your metal in. Okay. Other items we have, which I just didn't have time to really get some good pictures. We've made up some wheeled cardboard carts, just made out of plywood. We painted them. So now we have a place where people just throw their cardboard in. We can roll it right next to the baler and throw it into the baler. This has fixed a couple issues we had. For the most part, people were just throwing their cardboard on the ground. So we had to walk a distance, probably 15, 20 feet, to grab a handful of cardboard, walk over to the baler, dump it in. We have two of these, so when one gets full, we can empty one while the other one is getting full. We have pallet racks, which have been a great investment just because our building does not have a lot of room. So now we can stack vertically instead of horizontally. Okay. So Littleton is very lucky to have big businesses. Most towns do not, but helping the businesses is important. They pay a lot of taxes, so it's really important to help them. You know, I talk to them a lot. What are they doing with their recycling? Some of them have private haulers, some of them go direct to a mill. Some of them don't recycle, so you try to help them. You know, we figured out with multiple ones how to help them out. Some of them we go and pick up their recycling. Some of them now that weren't recycling at all are actually saved enough money so they could buy a truck and actually bring their recycling to us. That's how much money they're actually saving. You know, and on the transfer station recycling center side of it, you can get some good clean material in bulk. And once you get that good clean material, that's where the money is made, especially on cardboard, because you don't have to sort it. Okay. Like I said, we have a lot of big businesses. So like Tender Corporation, which makes bug spray, first aid kits, stuff like that. We get a 48-foot trailer from them per week, filled with cardboard and plastic. Genfoot, which makes rubber boots. You know, we get, that was my cat. We get a 48-foot trailer from them with cardboard every month. You know, we also get a lot of material from footwear, stitching, furniture, fireworks stores, food places. You know, it's all good, clean material. You know, I can't, you know, it's good to see because you have to work hard to get it sometimes, but once you start getting it in, it's easily the best revenue we have at the facility. Okay. COVID changes. I know everybody's sick of talking about COVID, so I will go over this quickly. We've tried different things. When we first started out, we did glass and steel cans and cardboard, and that was it. We said no more recycling plastic, paper, everything like that. Even for cardboard, we waited a day before we baled it. But that just lasted a couple days. Once we talked to the public, once I talked to my crew, we decided to change it. We decided to go single line, pre-sorted recycling. And I think I have a picture after, and then they just hand it to the employees. The employees actually sort it, and then they can dump it directly into the bays. And that worked. But why did it work? We didn't overreact. A lot of facilities, I think, overreacted at the beginning. We listened to the data, which I think was important. Because at the very beginning, more and more information was coming out, it seemed daily. And it just constantly changed, it seemed. The I talked to the employees a lot, and I talked to the customers a lot to see what they wanted to do. Because as a manager, I would never force my employees to do something they didn't want to do. So every morning we'd have a 15-20-minute conversation about what works, what doesn't work. And I think after about 2 or 3 weeks, we came up with this single line system, and it worked great. We actually went back to normal on Saturday, and the reason was a couple of my employees wanted to try it, and a lot of the customers were ready to go back to the normal way. And we've had 2 days of doing it back to normal, and I believe unless something changes, we're going to be normal from now on. Okay, so this is how we had it set up. Single line, we had 2 tables set up as with just pallets and a piece of plywood. So we actually had those 2 areas people would drive up to, set the recycling on the table. There'd be a guy behind it, so we had that social distancing, and we'd sort their material. The hardest part of it was actually getting people to pre-sort before they got here. Most people did good. Towards the end, people were starting to get lazy because they know we would just sort it for them. But for however months it was while this was happening, it worked very well. Most of the time, we had only 1 recycling table set up. Then on the busy days, we had the 2 tables. We also had 1 person down by the trash just to take the trash, direct traffic, stuff like that. Okay. That's it. I said,
Well, thank you, Brian, for your wonderful presentation. I want to thank Joanie, Ed, and Brian for their contributions, and I'd like to open it up to questions now. We also have NRRA's member manager, Bonnie Bethune, on the line as well to contribute to the conversation. We have one question come in already. Says to all the presenters, I love the public education examples. Do the presenters have suggestions for new or modified signage through the New Hampshire the Beautiful Sign program that would be helpful for New Hampshire communities? Anyone want to take that one? Remember to unmute your microphone.
I'd like to see if they could come up with, I mean, the New Hampshire the Beautiful program is wonderful, and all my signage here came through that. I don't know if they have any new signs in the new covert world. That might be something to look into, whoever
Yeah.
handles the sign side of it. And
I know
think
you were doing
wasn't there an option where we could actually get our own?
That's correct. They were doing a pilot program to individualize, you know, if you just basically send the text of what you'd like. So are there suggestions in this new normal that you would recommend for your facility that you don't have?
I'd have to think about it. I'm sure there are, because they, you know, some of the, you know, the 6-foot rule signs. There's a lot of generic stuff out there, but the personal stuff, as Brian had said, you know, this business is a lot to do with the persons and the people that come in, and you want to treat them such that they feel welcome, and you know. So yeah, I think definitely there's got to be some signs that we could put together.
Sure. Joanie, do you have any suggestions?
One comes to mind. If we have the good fortune of having a mom meeting here shortly, I think that would be a great item to put on the agenda, that maybe we could, as a group, come up with a couple of signs that we think might be good for all of us to use, and maybe we could present as a unified group to New Hampshire the Beautiful.
Sure.
That's my thoughts. Hear what everybody else has to say and go from there.
I'll put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
So signs of what I've found are great, but after about 3 to 4 weeks, people tend to stop reading them. So a lot of it, in my opinion, is you need a visual aid also, which I think most of us do have nowadays. And I know Lancaster does, we do. Joan, I think you did. The visual aids work a lot better than signs, in my opinion.
Sure. Bonnie has contributed a question. What's the biggest challenge you've experienced during this time, and what was the solution? I mean, it might have to do with COVID, or it might just be overall as an operator, as a manager.
I'd like to speak to that.
Go ahead,
I think our biggest challenge is when we had to stop everything and everything went into the trash. We had to come up with some creative ideas of how we were going to handle all the extra tonnages of trash and keep people socially distanced. And what we came up with is we had to find roll-off boxes to do so. And that was part of the solution. And what I have experienced with all of this is that you can never have enough emergency roll-off boxes for a situation like this. And it's something I know the town of Hollis is going to look into with New Hampshire the Beautiful in the future. Is we got caught with not having an emergency plan. So was a challenge, a really big challenge, and the solution was resolved for the short term, but just something I'd share. It was something that we really had a problem with.
Right. Emergency plans are always, out there, and you think, oh, I'll never need that. And we definitely experienced that here in 2020. Any other suggestions or experiences? Okay.
So here,
I know, go ahead.
oh, when this whole thing hit, we looked at everything we were doing here in Rollinsford. My biggest fear was the money that we were accepting. Money can be very dirty. So we stopped accepting it. But I couldn't get the town to kick into doing credit cards or debit cards. They didn't want to make that jump. So we did invoices for folks. And we've collected back pretty close to all the invoices pretty much have been paid. People were great that way. But one of the best things that happened was, I don't know whether it was Bonnie or who it was at NRRA, they got a hold of that infectious disease doctor in Portsmouth. And he did an awesome job at I think it was one of the NRRA meetings, there was a separate meeting.
Webinar.
Explaining how all this works, how this virus works and where it's going, where it's headed. Basically, he put my mind at ease. It's like, okay, this is more of an airborne. Very little of it is contact.
Right.
So within probably a month and a half, we went back to taking cash and have, knock on wood, have not had any issues. Of course, it's only one person handling it. We do use gloves, we do use masks. We're using all the precautions that way. And it seems to be working out good, so.
Excellent. Thanks for that suggestion, Ed. Sounds like you've got some background honking going on there.
That's what happens when you sit on your car keys.
We've had cats and car keys. Well, nothing like a live webinar. I appreciated what Joanie said in the beginning about, the situation has, you've decided to close your office door and open the window. So literally by some of these limitations, it's also opened new windows of practices. You know, and one of the questions I have has to do with size. I know that, you know, the presenters today have different size facilities, and there are advantages and disadvantages of that. How best have you been dealing with maximizing recycling separation with limited space at a facility? So I know a lot of towns have, you know, very tiny facilities. They don't know where to put things. So any suggestions about space issues? Brian and Ed, I see you're live.
I thought maybe Brian might want to go first.
Oh, okay. So every place is set up differently, and I've been to a lot of them, and it's interesting how people do things. And you have to think outside the box sometimes, and don't be afraid to get some of the experts in to look at it and get suggestions. You know, some of the things I have done, for an example, is like get the pallet racks. So all of a sudden, because we ran out of room, especially in the building on the floor. So we got, what, 1, 2, 3, we got 4 8-foot pallet racks, which we can stack things 3 high. We have things like our town bags, electronics, fluorescent bulbs, kind of all on them. That ended up giving us a lot of room. And, you know, you just have to think outside the box sometimes.
Sure, certainly. Yeah, I'm looking forward to our upcoming member meetings, socially distanced outdoor meetings, because I know that our members are missing visiting other sites, seeing how folks are doing things, and you know, working with the new normal for sure. Any other questions? I know we have a lot of operators on the line, and don't be shy to ask any questions. Also, we do get things come in after the webinar and pass them on to presenters. We'd be happy to do that as well. Any other questions from our participants? All right. Well, I wanted to thank all 3 of you for participating in this webinar, and it's just I know 1 hour of your busy day, and I know that here at NRRA we have seen the numbers increase, you know, more folks home, able to go through their basements and garages, so we've actually had an increase in some of the tonnage of coming into facilities and moving materials. So that's, you know, good news there. People going through their back 40 and getting rid of things and recycling. So at this point, I would like to thank our sponsors for the webinar, Interstate Refrigerant Recovery Incorporated, Schnitzer, and the USDA. I would remind everyone that there's a post-webinar survey which will launch immediately after the webinar. It will also appear in your email inbox tomorrow. As a reminder, we welcome feedback. And we will continue our series next Wednesday, September 9th at 9 a.m. And we'll look at the Massachusetts Mattress Recycling Incentive Grant Program with Rachel Smith. That should be a very interesting program. And then we're going to end our webinar series with Event Waste Reduction, Styling Your Event Recycling Plan, with Cindy Sterling, who's our grants manager here at NRRA and senior educator, and Ben Parham, our education assistant at NRRA. And that'll be Friday, September 11th from noon to 1. I want to thank you all for attending and have a happy summer.